Welcome to the A Minute to Midnight Show, folks. This is Tony coming to you from New Zealand. And today, just looking at the end of the day for the stock market going down big time. As I'm looking, it's about over 1,100 points again. Not sure exactly what it's going to close at because it's a few minutes away, I think. But it's another massive big points drop. So things are really escalating. Folks, if you haven't done anything to prepare, it's like you better hurry up and get into it. And I think the guest I have on the show today, Jason Bramble, will probably give you some good tips too as to why it's important to be ready, because Jason has been in Hong Kong in the midst of what has been going on. Back home in Canada now though, aren't you, Jason?
Yeah, safe and sound. It's good to be here.
Yeah, well, you've seen an awful lot, so maybe give the listeners a little bit of a background. It's great. By the way, yeah, Jason's been a Minute to Midnight follower for a long way, and we have a bit of a running joke between us about Comrade and the Kremlin.
Yeah. So if we accidentally get into that, don't mind us. It's just an inside joke.
Yep, it is. Yeah, it's been running for, I don't know, we've probably been doing that for over a year, I'd imagine now. Maybe longer. Yeah.
Ever since the election of 2016, for sure.
Yeah, probably right. Yeah, with the whole Trump being investigated over the Russia thing and all that. So it's a bit of a joke. But yeah, this situation isn't such a joke, though. So maybe let the listeners know a little bit of your background and why you were in Hong Kong and so on.
Oh, okay. Well, I am actually married to a woman from Hong Kong. And I started going there in 2013, the year before our wedding. And I went there to meet her parents and make sure everything went on, because that's what you do, right? You got to meet the parents, the family. But I've always been kind of too scared to stay there full time. So I just always come home. I spend, between 3 and 6 months, depending on the situations and stuff. The longest I've stayed is 6 months. And this time I didn't stay so long because of what's going on, but I go every year. So I spent a little more than a year of my life in Hong Kong. So I kind of get what's going on there. And it's not like I'm a tourist. I live in, like a local because of my wife and her family. I don't do the touristy thing. I don't really speak that much Cantonese, but I understand a lot more than I speak, kind of deal. So that's why I was there. This year, this trip was actually, it was very odd. I wasn't sure if I was going to go at all because I had other things to do here. But I guess you could say it was like, the Lord or whatever saying, yeah, you should just take some time off and go. So I wasn't sure why, so I went. And as you can see, a lot of things happened. If you know me on Facebook, you've been following me, I posted a lot about what's going on there. And yeah, so I'm here to share with you guys the story and because there's a lot of fake things out there. Being on the ground there, I have a more keen insight to the feelings and what's actually happening. So if you'll bear with me, I will go into it with you guys.
That sounds awesome. Just one question I'm just curious about. How do Hong Kong residents, how do they view, what do they think of a black man being married to a Chinese woman? Does it go down well, or do they have issues with it? Or I'm just interested to know your thoughts on it just really quickly because I want to stay on it. But
oh yeah. I thought it would be a lot less accepting than it was, because you hear all these horror stories of mainland China, and like especially when you're black, you hear all these horror stories about how the schools, you get hired by a school to teach English, and then the parents come saying, why do we have the black teacher, and all this other stuff. But surprisingly, maybe I was the Lord, maybe it was, I don't know, but it worked out well for me. A lot of more people were more interested to know if she and I had a child. and they really wanted to see the mixed race child. Uh, but I haven't run into any issues with the family, except there's only one family member that really doesn't like me, and I don't know why. And that's okay because I don't really speak to her. So she's actually an outcast in the family right now too, because she's very pro Beijing. So
yeah, well, I imagine mainland China would be somewhat different than Hong Kong, but that's good to know your experience with that. So now, all right, so you were there kind of from the time at the end of the protests and everything. So maybe give us a bit of a timeline.
Oh yeah, actually the protests weren't over when I got there. I got there on December 9th, and it was still going on. I posted a video from a mall on Christmas Eve. I did a Facebook Live on Christmas Eve, and the same day that I did that live in that same mall, there was actually a protest there. Maybe 10 minutes. I was still in the mall when the protest started. I couldn't figure out why it was taking me more than an hour to leave the mall, but I found out later it was still going on. So the protests still, technically, a lot of it is still going on. It's just getting a lot more radical. But in December, it's still hard. It was still heated. You couldn't really go to malls or anything on Saturday or Sunday because they would be there, the protesters and the police.
And I see here with your video, you've got some video from December the 26th, and nobody's wearing masks or anything like that. But you tell us a little bit about what the experience was.
Oh yes, that was the day after Christmas, and as you can see in the video, it's showing just people walking around. I decided just to shoot some B-roll. I wasn't sure why. Just like maybe I should just shoot something. I'm out, why not? And you can see there's still plenty of people. A lot of those people are mainland tourists, and that was when they were still coming to the city. So it all changed shortly after New Year's Day, actually. Yeah.
Okay. Yep. So now you fast forward to January 6th, and in the video you can see it's protests still going on, and there's the odd person with a mask on, but not many.
Yeah. That was that was a Sunday, I believe, and is a protest in Central District, which is the financial hub. They were doing that every Sunday from the time I was there in December until this, we'll call it Wu Flu for now, because I don't want to get demonetized or whatever. So we'll call it Wu Flu. Until that started really kicking into action, they would gather up in Central 2 million people. And I'm not even exaggerating the number. That is the amount of people gathered there to protest the government and the mainlander incursion, they'd call it, I guess you would say, because all they did was come in and shop and they go home. But some of them would buy up property, and it's really kind of sticky. I can get into it if you want the basics of it, but more or less, they're unhappy that people from the mainland were coming to Hong Kong with their mainland money, because the government there in the mainland is paying out people like with farms and things, so they can build. You've heard of the Chinese ghost cities, right?
Yep.
Yeah, so they can build those ghost cities. So you have a lot of suddenly rich mainland Chinese, and they come in there, and because they don't trust their own stuff, they come to Hong Kong. They buy apartments. They put their kids in the best schools, and it's driving up the price of housing and the price of everything. So that was part of their beef of why they wanted mainlanders kind of closed out.
Okay, yep. So, looking at the video, there's an awful lot of people wandering around, even on January the 6th, with these protests, and the odd one with masks, but probably more to hide their face, right? Rather than...
Yeah, because of the government tried to pass an anti-mask law where you couldn't wear one during the protests. So wearing a mask was a sign of protest.
Ah,
At that,
that's
yeah.
interesting. Yeah, okay. So how quickly things change after that, though.
Yeah, it deteriorated quickly. Around that time, I started noticing on the TVB, which is the main channel in Hong Kong, the news. They started reporting about something happening in, we'll call it WH for now. And every night, a little blurb here and there. Something's going on there. People are getting sick, and they're not sure why. They think it's from the wet market. And as it got really bad really quickly after that. Um, I would say that was the 6th, that protest video. I would say about the 10th or the 11th, it was like maybe a week later, you started hearing about, oh, another SARS. And that started getting people really panicked because they still remember SARS from 2003. Um, the thing with that is, like, even my wife and her family were scared because SARS in 2003, because I was younger back then, but I still knew her and I knew them more or less, and so I dealt with it to a degree. I've been around SARS before, and the reason why it caught like wildfire in that time because no one knew what it was, and they didn't know how to stop it or how it was spreading. So it spread in apartment buildings because in Hong Kong it's these tightly packed apartments, right? And there's families in there, and the disease spreads from one family to the next, to the next, to the next, and it caught on like wildfire. So they're having memories and flashbacks of that, and I'm telling them you should just relax. You guys have been through this before, and now you're a lot more prepared. I told them, yes, you shouldn't trust the government as it stands. I don't trust my government. Who trusts their government these days? But they and this is not something they had planned. They don't have any idea. Like even the CCP did not want this thing to get out, kind of thing, because it it will damage their reputation in the world. They spent all of 2019 more or less, saying you've hurt the feeling of the Chinese people to every company or celebrity that would dare say anything. You remember that?
Yeah.
So like NBA and whoever, right?
Yeah.
You've hurt the feeling of the Chinese people, and they spent the whole of 2019 saying that. So this coming out now would have been a bad look, but they couldn't contain it because sometime around, like I say, around mid-January there, um, I woke up to a bunch of panicked WhatsApp messages from my wife and others that I know in Hong Kong saying, oh, a bunch of mainland Chinese people are trying to flee to Hong Kong. So I was like, why? And then the Wu flu thing exploded, kind of thing. The first set of people had died, and I asked Simon how old are the people who died, and because the news, of course, wasn't reporting that, right? So
Yeah.
I asked how old, and they said, oh, they don't know. When it came out later, I was like, I bet you they're old, because Wu flu / CV, SARS, it tends to target elderly and people with health problems.
Yeah.
It's just a flu, basically, right?
Yeah.
So that's why Lysol and Clorox and those things, they have a thing on their bottles saying will kill CV because CV has been around.
Yeah.
A lot of people online posting these things like, oh, how did they know that CV is around, whatever, but it's been around. So anyways, I woke up to these panic text messages, and it's true. People from WH had fled the city because I guess they knew it was coming, and they'd scattered to the four winds, any direction they could go, and a lot of them fled to Hong Kong because they don't trust their own doctors and stuff. Because a quick little history thing about mainland. Bribery gets you more treatment, kind of thing, in that society. So they feel that if they don't bribe the doctors, they're not going to get healed. So they go to Hong Kong, because in Hong Kong at that time, actually, there was still free treatment for non-residents, and them being non-residents, they fled there like like uh like crazy.
Yeah,
Yeah,
makes sense. Yep.
yeah, and they fled to Japan and a couple of other places around Asia, but it seems to be mostly centered around Hong Kong and things.
So then it wasn't too far into February and things really began to change. And yeah, you've got like video in here of someone in a mall having a fit.
Yeah, yeah. That was a local mall I was at, and I missed the actual collapse, but I saw the fit part, and um, so I started filming. That's why it's filmed in a bad way. I usually film like landscapes so you get a
Yeah, it's
widescreen.
still, that's fine. It's still
But
good to have
yeah,
it captured. Yep.
yeah, and that was the first time and people were really terrified because at that time, not a lot of masks. Actually, not a lot of masks were available because the Wu flu had already been announced and people had been dying, even though it was elderly people. And the masks don't really protect you from anything, but that's what they're used to. So, and no one wanted to help this man. I should have, but I didn't want to really get close because I didn't understand
Yeah.
what was happening,
Yeah.
right? And the thing with Chinese society, you have a lot of people who are scammers. They'll fake injuries and you'll go up to them and help them, and then they'll fall over and say you pushed them and demand compensation. So that's why a lot of people didn't want to help because they had no idea either, right? If he is a scammer or not.
Yeah.
And this is a really bad part of their society that they should really look into, but they probably never will.
So do you know what actually happened to that guy?
Oh yeah, he had the Wu flu.
Right.
I don't know if he died, but he was the second case reported in Hong Kong.
Wow, and you
So
happened to be there to catch it, and not the
yeah,
flu, hopefully.
no. I think I'm good because I was way up in February, and they say this thing has at max a 28-day
Yeah.
cycle period, and I'm at the 28th day of that incident. So
Yeah. Wow.
yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's pretty scary footage. Now, and you've also got photos of other people that you've taken collapsed. What are the stories with some of those?
Again, I'd be out walking, doing some street photography or whatever, and I'd see collapsed people, and it's unusual, so you take pictures, right? And I'm not sure if they all had the Wu flu or not, but I'm pretty sure because it seems like a lot of Chinese social media, there was a lot of videos and stuff coming out
Yeah.
of people just collapsing with it. So
Some of those cases you don't really know, though, because a lot of it's CTV footage and so on. And I mean, we don't know. It could be someone having a heart attack or anything, It's hard to know, especially if you don't understand Chinese. But I mean, yeah, I look at some of those and think, who knows? But anyway, yeah, but some of those pictures you've got are like, wow.
Yeah, it's they just collapsed out of nowhere. Suspected probably, and it's very likely that they had the Wu flu. So, but if you'll notice, they're all pretty older people, right? It's
Yeah.
never really younger guys. So, there's a lot of panic, and I'm glad you actually asked me to be on because I wanted to address the panic going on. This thing doesn't tend to kill younger people. Like it goes after retirees and people with weak immune systems.
Yeah.
If you're taking care of yourself even a little bit where your immune system is okay, you'll survive it. It's just like the flu. It's just another flu strain of CV. People are panicking. I heard that in the States, I can't say about Canada because I haven't really gone out to check because I self-quarantined when I got back. But and I'm still under self-quarantine, so but in the States, they're here, they're buying up all the masks and the hand sanitizer. You don't really need to do that. The masks don't protect. it just keeps you from spreading if you have it.
Yeah.
And that's only through if you spreading it through your coughing. If you sneeze, your sneeze is actually sending out the germs further than the cough. Or if you don't wash your hands enough and you touch a railing, you're spreading it that way. So don't go crazy and buy up all the masks. They're not going to protect you if this thing is a pandemic, which it's who knows now, because the media is sure making it out to be.
Yeah, this is it. I mean, it could well spread and probably will, but we don't really know how deadly it is. You know, it's being hyped up big time. Whether it's going to be the hype that's worse than the disease, or whether the disease is going to really kill that many people, we'll have to wait and see. But the other thing is it's going to likely kill economies. I mean, you just look at the panic that's developing is crashing things, and I can see that getting far worse yet. But anyway, that's a bit of a digression. Okay, so what about back in Hong Kong again, when the government announces that it will bring home Hong Kong residents from Wuhan?
Oh, yes. There's, as you know, there's a bunch of, I think Wuhan is a tier 2 city, tier 3 in China. So it's big, but not that big. So I was surprised when all these countries, Canada, America, had all these residents that they're evacuating. And Hong Kong waited a very, very, very long time. The States had pulled their people out almost right away. Canada next, Japan, et cetera, et cetera. So Hong Kong finally decides we're going to bring these people home, but we have nowhere to put them. And they decide, okay, we're going to put them in where I was living, in Fotan. And I think I have a video there of it, but they decide to bring them there. And there's a new apartment complex across the way from where I was living, and they were going to store them there. And that threw the people into such a rage, and I couldn't believe it. Because they had a protest saying, don't close off Fotan, because they're thinking, Fotan is going to be like this Wu flu is going to spread like wildfire. But the place where they're putting them is under construction, and they can't even leave. There's no way for them to leave. They're bussed in, and they're brought in undercover, and then there's no one living in the building, so they're just in there by themselves. And the amount of inhumanity that sprang up just as a result of them bringing these people home was shocking to me. I couldn't believe it. They have a right to be there. They're Hong Kong residents. Yes, they're in WH, but they needed to bring them back home. They can't stay there. Wuhan is on lockdown. And that's true. Like, you see that reported everywhere. It is on lockdown. You can't, one person per family is allowed to go out for like an hour and most to get groceries or whatever. No gatherings of any kind. So these people wanted to leave and come home. But these people, were so scared of them, they decided to hit the streets and protest, and I couldn't believe it.
Pretty freaky, all right. Now, you also included some Chinese Communist Party propaganda videos, showing how they plan to take down people that try to flee. Man, yeah. It's like, wow.
Yeah, that's a little bit it's a little bit funny, but it's not funny at the same time, because it's very excessive. They see how they treat the person.
Yeah.
And you can imagine that's what they've released.
Yeah, probably worse in reality.
Worse in reality.
Can you tell us a bit about, just moving on, what you saw about the panic? Because, this could happen in the Western world as well, with people panic buying and so on.
Yeah, this is what I wanted to actually really warn people about. The panic was not anything that I myself had ever witnessed in real life, ever. And people, I went out to get my groceries, and it was just like a normal day. I went out, and when I got to the grocery store, there was nothing available in terms of food you could save, like rice or instant noodles or pasta, um, anything that you could save for a long time, right? Water.
Yeah.
They had all gone out. All these people had stopped going to work because they were so scared of this thing. They stopped going to work, my mother-in-law included, stopped going to work for like a month and just gone to the grocery store one day. I don't know what prompted it. Um, I don't know. Still have no idea what prompted it. It's just a random Thursday, and they had all gone to the local parking shops and grocery stores and just bought up whatever they could find: toilet paper, uh, water, anything they could grab their hands on. That was the masks, especially. Um, anything that they and you. I went all over the city trying to just buy my normal groceries because I wasn't panicked. I was just okay. Well, I may as well get my grocery, and but they had gone to such a fervent panic that they just bought up everything, and the government was telling them there's no need to panic. We're not going to close the border because they get a lot of their food from mainland China, and they were scared that, well, we're not going to have any food, we're not going to have any toilet paper, and so they just went out and just ransacked shops. What you seen them waiting in line for long distances, and it's not something I ever expected to see. Like you see the random footage sometimes from Florida when there's a hurricane. The empty grocery stores.
Yeah.
It was worse than that even, and they were not humane about it either. There was pushing, craziness, and my mother-in-law, because she's a lot shorter than me, she's 4 foot something. So she asked me to go pick up the toilet paper. So I grabbed 4. I figured, okay, 4 would be enough, 4 of the packs of 24 or whatever. And as I was walking back to the apartment with it, so many like women and like men were looking at me like they wanted to take them from me, but because I was much larger than them,
yeah, you're a big
they
guy.
they didn't want to approach, but some of them were seriously considering it, right?
Yeah.
And all for nothing, because the government actually kept their word, and the supplies are still flowing into the country. And I just wanted to warn everyone: if you don't have and this is, I am not preaching because I'm not a big prepper. As you know, like you said, we've known each other a while.
Yeah.
How many times have I asked, okay, what should I even begin to do?
Yeah,
right?
Going back for the last 3-4 years. Yeah.
Yeah. So like, that I'm not a big time survivalist or anything. I just go with the flow. But if you could buy even just an extra bag of rice, an extra case of water, extra canned foods, extra medicine, you don't have to go nuts and try to bunker down for years.
Yeah.
Because the Bible says all this stuff is worthless anyway. If it turns to worms, what are you going to do, right? So you can buy a little bit extra when you're going out. And if you can do that, please do that, because this thing that happened in Hong Kong with the panic buying is going to happen here if this thing gets worse.
Yeah.
And here and in the States, and they're not as kind. They actually, especially in the States, I'm not anti-gun, but in the States, everyone has a gun, and they're not afraid to use them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So you got to be. It'll get very violent very quickly, and like I said, even in Hong Kong, people wanted to rob me for it, but they couldn't because they knew that I would fight back. They wouldn't win.
Yeah.
So it's important that you at least just pick up some extra. You don't have to go nuts.
Yeah, you're right. And the rice and the canned food and the water is good. Toilet paper. Also things like rolled oats, It's cheap as chips, and that's really good. And then, a few dried foods and different things. I mean, it's kind of late in the day to be prepping big time, but people should do something definitely. even if you don't have a lot of money, just do what you can. But but you don't want to be treating people like animals like what you've seen, and I guess that's why you don't want to be stuck in stores when it comes to that.
Exactly, because if you're stuck in there, you're done. It's a literal war zone. I have some pictures there. You see all the Chinese women with the empty baskets. That turned ugly really quickly because they brought out the rice, and that just turned into a stampede. And there was no concern for anybody at that time. It's if you're in my way, then God help you, kind of thing. And I don't want that to happen to anyone who is even listening, because we're all brothers and sisters in Christ. If you're listening to this, you're probably, so you should just be prepared. Please don't overbuy. Just have enough for maybe 2 weeks, because if you're a big time prepper, then good for you. God bless you. But if you're a normal person like me, a bag of rice, that if you buy the big bags, that will last you like 2 or 3 weeks.
Yeah.
Like that rice is a big, you only need a cupful and it'll feed 4 people. So, just kind of focus on those kind of things. Medicines that you take is also something you should grab, because people, like I say, when I saw there, people were just buying whatever they could get their hands on, and they were hoarding it and storing it. And that would bring me to the part I really want to talk about, the masks and the hand sanitizer. It was so crazy to see that even when I tried it, because I didn't need it, I didn't believe in it, but my in-laws and my wife were like, can you please get us some masks from Canada, because we can't get them here. Because what was happening is people from China were coming there, buying them to go sell them back in China. So I even bought some from Canada, and I shipped it over, and I used FedEx, and it stopped in Shanghai, I believe. And then from Shanghai, they ported it over to Hong Kong. And in Shanghai, they opened the package, saw it was masks, stole the masks, and sent the package empty. Like, so it's all for nothing. Like, the masks do not protect you. Like I said, it just keeps you from, spreading this. If you feel the need to have it, okay, just get 1 or 2 boxes, but don't hoard. Please don't hoard, because they don't actually protect you. If you're going to get this thing, you're going to get it, believe me. And we should ultimately put our faith in God and go forward with that, because
probably the hand washing is far more important. Regular hand washing.
More important. Yeah, it's far more important to keep your hands clean and not touch your face if you're outside too often. Like I said, because the rest of while a lot of us who are listening to this, or that means you probably have read your Bible, you know what's coming, and this is just a trial run. And the inhumanity I saw over there, I'm sure will be 10 times worse in the rest of the world, because at least they're not armed. So it's just pushing and shoving. But I know for a fact on this side, it'll be fighting and shooting and stabbing, especially if it gets desperate. And people are so terrified of this thing because the media is lying and not telling you the truth. And they're going to be frenzied if this thing gets worse. Which brings me to an important point. Please remember to pray before you even leave the house. I know it's so cliche Christian thing to say, but I prayed it every day. Psalm 91, 60, and Psalm 64 and 27 every single day. And I went out. Yes, I had to wear the mask only because it made my wife and my mother-in-law feel better.
Yeah.
They didn't even want me to leave the house because they didn't leave. they work from home, or in my wife's case, she worked from home, and my mother-in-law just stopped going to work. And I don't know if she lost her job or not, but she just stopped going to work. And a lot of people in Hong Kong did the same, just stopped going to work. And I need my freedom. I need to go out and I need to hit the gym. And I did that. And this is where our faith comes in as an important commodity. I went out knowing that I was protected. And as long as you don't go out in ignorance thinking, yeah, okay, I'm protected, I'm going to go touch everything. No, you still be careful. But if you know you're protected from, on high, you'll be fine. And I knew that. I went out boldly, and that increased my faith so much. Before, I wouldn't say I was lukewarm, but I did have like my doubts sometimes, but I went out boldly day after day, and they didn't understand why at all. Like my in-laws and that is such a hard thing to deal with when you're trying to convince others, the path is right. They see you going out in boldness because you're protected, and they don't understand it. And I just want you guys to be prepared for that as well. People will not understand your faith, and they will not accept it either. It seemed to be an agitator to especially my mother-in-law, that I would be so bold to go out and dare to do what others are not doing. And it's a spiritual thing as well. Like there's a lot of stuff going on with this particular virus, and it's leading into something. Joni released a video the other day with we're in the Book of Revelation, or the Book of Revelation is open now, or something like that.
Yeah, there's Joni Stahl's YouTube channel.
Yeah, and that video is so true. I think we are at the beginning, and people will not understand us doing things that, even as simple as going out, and it really, really agitated, especially because she's not a believer like that. They grew up Catholic, and so did I, but I'm out of it, obviously. And so, they don't understand the power that we have, that we can do, even as simple as going out and not getting sick in this case. And it really, really agitated them to the point of, because they don't understand it. They don't get it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And the last part of that is, this was like really hard for me too, because they asked me to leave, and this might happen to some people. They asked me to leave because I was going out and I was using up the masks every day. I only take one, but it's still using it up, and they felt like it is hoarding their supply, and the extra food, and this is why it's important to have enough, because if people, when they get like this, even if you're family or whatever, because normally she loves me like her son, her real son, but this time it was very different. I was viewed as like a burden, and this will happen to people, and it hurts. But you got to remember, these people don't understand. Like these people around us, they do not understand this thing, and they're scared. And so that's why at first I was hurt about it, and then I realized, for the first time in a long time, I've heard like a clear voice telling me, you don't take it personally. They're scared, and they do not understand your faith. Right? So
yeah,
it's rough. It is very rough, but we got to endure this. And remember just to keep other people in your prayers, because they deserve it too.
Yes, and I'm just thinking too, Angela, who runs a blog called No Longer Lukewarm, she did an article which she quoted some stuff from you as well. You can check out her blog. I can't think of the name of the article at the moment, but that's the blog, No Longer Lukewarm. It's a WordPress blog, and I don't know if you know the name of the article offhand, but it's a pretty recent one, and it's worth reading.
Yeah. I can't remember the name of it either, but yes, it was. She did a really good job. It's definitely worth reading. If you guys can find it, that'd be it. It's a recent one.
I'll try and actually, I'll put a link. I'll find it and I'll put a link in so that people can actually, there'll be a link with this video.
Yeah, I just, the fruit of the Spirit during times of crisis. That's the title of it.
Excellent. Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, well, thanks, Jason. Have you got any last thoughts then you want to get across, and then we'll close up?
It's just, like I say, guys, please do not panic. The media is going to lie and stuff. They're going to use this. I don't want to sound like, like Alex Jones or whatever. Well, they're doing it, but this is a convenient opportunity for them to use something natural to force through their thing. Yeah. And like you said at the beginning with the stock markets and stuff, Hong Kong's about to go into recession because, like I said, a lot of people aren't going to work and a lot of things are closing down. And I have there's probably a video in there somewhere of the empty mall at 7 p.m. Yeah. That is not normal in Hong Kong. Hong Kong malls are open till like 11:30 midnight almost. And that one in particular is very popular. And it's closing at 7 o'clock. Something has kind of come from this. So guys, please, please, please just pray and be ready. Get your stuff together, but don't panic. Above all, please. The panic is what's going to strip you of your humanity and your and that's the message that I really want to get out there. Do not let this strip you of of who you are in Christ. It is important to please remember and remember your fellow man, even like the atheists and the crazies, and they're all loved by the Lord, so we should love them too. And to do that, we have to be of right mind and spirit, and panic will not get you there. And that's all I really wanted to share.
Yeah, well, thanks, Jason. This has been a real big wake-up call, I'm sure, for people, and you've done a fantastic job with documenting Hong Kong, and I'm really glad to have had you on the A Minute to Midnight show finally after, we've been chatting for such a long time. So, man, it's been awesome, and we'll definitely have to have you back on.
Thank you. I'm really honored to be on the show. I've been listening for so long, and it's glad to finally have something to share and hopefully help people out with.
Yeah, awesome. Cheers, man.
Thanks, man. You have a good day.
Yeah, you too.
God bless you. Bye-bye.
And folks, don't forget to visit our website, aminutomidnight.com, where we put all of our shows as archives, and also they're on iTunes and YouTube as well. And A Minute to Midnight's run 100% by donations. Greatly appreciate those that help through donating. If you're one of those, I want to say thank you very much. And if anyone else wants to help, you can donate at aminutomidnight.com. Give this video the thumbs up too, by the way, folks. So that's it for this episode. We'll be hopefully back, and God willing, in a few days' time. Take care, don't panic, and God bless.